This is How About That Podcast, a show dedicated to all things Dallas Cowboys. With both objective and subjective perspectives, How About That Podcast is your place to hear about America's team. Now, here's Joseph Hoyt and Danny Morales.
All right, I have a bone to pick with you, Danny Morales.
Sure.
I let you have the podcast co-hosted, and you did a great job, right? I mean, going from co-host to sole host. Joey, the Third Eye Raven, came out of the cave, took a more prominent role, and you did a great job. So I want to get that out there first, okay?
Thank you.
The fact, though, that you're spreading this image that I had a nose job, though, is ridiculous, okay?
I'm not a doctor, Joe. I don't pretend to be one. You didn't give me much detail on what you were having done. All you said was nose procedure. I didn't ask any more questions. I just asked how you were doing afterwards.
Which I'm appreciative of, but you're spreading this image that I had a rhinoplasty and that I was so fixated on my image to fix my nose that I needed surgery for it. You know what, Dan? This was, I take offense to that. This was a septoplasty. This was a deviated septum fix. I had to get an FESS surgery, which cleaned out all my sinuses from nasal polyps. Okay. And then I had to have my turbinates reduced. This was a very functional surgery.
And you still have a face for radio, so.
My point exactly. Well, thank you again, everyone. As we're kind of talking about, I had surgery last week, so I had to take at least one podcast off. I didn't know it was possible to go through that many tissues / blood, and be fine. Like, that blew my mind, but I'm here, I'm breathing. Like, I'll give it, haven't been able to do that my entire life. So I'm in a good place here a week after surgery.
Joe, I have a quick question. We've been talking about how you've been able to breathe better. Are you going to be able to smell more? Like, your smelling ability is going to be enhanced now?
It should be, actually, but right now I can't smell at all. So I'm smell blind, as the great Joey.
That's called COVID, Joe.
Post surgery COVID. I can taste, though, Dan. So I think you're wrong. You're wrong about my nose once again. So I think you should keep your nose out of my nose. Okay? Sound good?
I'll keep my nose in California. Don't worry.
That's right. All right. Well, we got a fun episode here. Most of it is going to be a mock draft, which, Danny and I, we have done these for fun for years. We've been big draft fans. So it's fun to actually do one on the pod. Joey's also going to be doing it. And we're also going to have Maura Carey, who covers my Florida teams for GulfLive.com. She does a great job. And they know this now because we've already recorded this, but there's a fun little twist that I didn't tell them about this draft that they're going to have a chance to listen to, or a chance to do on this draft. So stay tuned for the mock draft. We do all 32 picks. Spoiler alert, the Cowboys will not be picking at 24. How that happens, we'll see. Tune in for the rest of the mock draft and the rest of the podcast. All right, now let's hop in to a mock draft for How About That Podcast. The first one with How About That Podcast. The second one with LoneStarLive and GulfLive. And we have a special guest with us. We have Maura Carey, who covers our Florida teams over at GulfLive. Maura, how are you doing? And how excited are you to do this mock draft today?
Great, Joe. I'm happy to be here today. Like you said, mock draft 2.0 for GulfLive and LoneStarLive, but first one for How About That Podcast. Excited to be here.
Yep, and Maura and Danny and Joey both all know this. So we're gonna split the 32 picks between the four of us. But I decided to get a little mischievous with this, and I wanted to do a couple twists, and I didn't tell them exactly beforehand. So this is a surprise to them. What we're gonna do is we're going to randomly pick, hey, 1 through 4, we're all going to have 8 teams each, and we're going to randomly do that. So we're picking for all 32 teams. The twist is I have hidden certain trades that happen that you will not know until you're on the clock. So, for example, if Joey wins our rock, paper, and scissors phenomenon here, then he's going to pick first, right? And 5th and 9th and subsequently all the way down the draft. He doesn't know, though, that there might be a trade at one of those picks. So what we're going to do is we're trying to recreate the craziness of the draft, the suddenness, so that it's such a surprise and that it kind of is a little bit organic. And it should be a little pretty fun, too. Danny, what is your reaction to this twist?
Bring it on. I love the surprise. Makes it more realistic. And you had some up your sleeve, so I like it. And I've probably done 50 mock drafts on my own, just scrolling through my phone. So it's nice to finally get one out there for the people.
Joey, what is your reaction to the mock draft 2.0 with the twist?
I'm excited for the chaos. That's all I got to say.
Maura, you ready?
I'm more so scared than ready, but let's get started. I'm here.
Okay, good. So one of my favorite podcasts is this podcast called All Fantasy Everything, where they do a fantasy draft for different random topics in pop culture. So they'll fantasy draft Taco Bell items, the best items on the menu. They'll fantasy draft best people who are deceased that you'd want to have a happy hour with. But how they determine the draft order is they do a rock, paper, scissors over Zoom with 4 people, or with 3 people in this case. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is on the count of 3, rock, paper, scissors, shoot, is to do rock, paper, scissors. Whoever is the odd person out gets to pick the order. They get to say, hey, I'm first, Joey's second, Maura's third, and Joe is fourth. Okay? So bear with me. It's a little confusing, but I'm just rock, paper, scissors, shoot when I say it. Okay? You guys ready?
One question. So say like you and Maura do rock, and then like Danny does paper and I do scissors. Then what?
So I'm not going to be involved with this. So what we're trying to do is just to get an odd person out. So if all 3 of you get a different one, rock, paper, or scissors, then we redo it.
Okay.
But if Joey and Maura both have rock and Danny has scissors, then Danny actually wins.
Okay.
Even though rock would be scissors. So all we're trying to do is get the odd person out. Okay,
Sure.
you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ready.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Joey, raise your hand. What you got? Oh, Maura's the odd person out. Maura is the winner.
So that's good.
Yes. So Maura, you get the designation of picking 1, 2, 3, 4. Who goes first, second, third, fourth, and then we'll obviously just keep that order all the way down through the whole first round.
All right. I'm just gonna go the order on my screen here because I can't do the mental math and think ahead. So I'll go first. Joe, I'll have you go second.
Okay.
Danny third, and then Joey fourth.
All right.
Okay. So just to double check, Maura first, me second, Joey third, Danny fourth.
Correct.
Danny third? Or
I'm
Danny
third.
Danny third, Joey fourth.
Danny third. See.
And one more question, Joe. We can't make any trades, right? Because all the trades have already been pre-made.
They've been pre-made, and there's also a couple contingency trades. Like if certain things were to happen, I've got a whole sheet on my end. I'm the wizard behind the. Don't look at the wizard behind the screen. All right, I'm there.
Question, Joe.
Yes.
Can I reject your trade?
No.
Okay.
You've taken the responsibilities of the Third Eye Raven, I gotta say.
Oh,
You're the new Raven.
I'm the fourth-eyed Raven. I've won up to you. I don't know.
This guy gets a nose job, now he comes back and he's running the show, calling the shots.
See, full disclosure for the listeners, we're recording this before we record the actual podcast. Danny, I have a gripe with you that we're going to air at the beginning of this podcast because I want to call my nose sinus surgery as a nose job. I'm annoyed. Anyways, that's for another time. Or for the listeners, you've already heard it probably. But all right, so let's do this. So Maura, you are up first with the first pick in the draft. And what will that pick be?
All right, so this should come as a huge shock to everybody, but I think the Chicago Bears are going to go for Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. Now, is that where Caleb Williams actually wants to go? I don't know, but it's a blessing and a curse to be the first overall draft pick, and I haven't seen hype like this since Trevor Lawrence back in 2021, so feeling very confident here that the Chicago Bears go with Caleb Williams.
All right, well, that's the first pick. Any thoughts, guys? Or this is a pretty slam dunk one. If it's anyone other than Caleb Williams, we're jumping up and throwing things because of just
interestingly enough, I saw a mock a couple days ago about Drake May going first, which I don't see it.
No
if it
way.
happens, I think a lot of people are gonna be losing money on DraftKings and whatever else.
Well, do you guys remember too? Baker Mayfield was not a number one. Like, they were not talking about Baker Mayfield number one. And who were the other QBs in that class?
Sam Darnold, Josh Allen.
I mean, people were not talking about Baker Mayfield number one until like the week of the draft, and all of a sudden it happened. I mean, I don't think Josh and Sam were the generational talent that Caleb Williams is, but that was shocking. So you never know.
Crazy things can happen, but not this year. I think they're going with Caleb Williams.
Not this year. All right. Well, that brings me up with the number 2 pick in the Washington Commanders. And there's been a lot of discussion about, hey, is this the Drake May pick, or is Jaden Daniels getting enough steam? I think they go Drake May here. I think we're going to keep it simple. I think Cliff Kingsbury, I think that's a guy that, he could like in his system. I think Drake May can make every single throw. One of those things where, like, I genuinely don't know who it would be, right? And I think that this could be a fun pick. I mean, shoot, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, Danny and Joey, but did you guys see that they're hosting all the QBs for a visit? And they're going to Topgolf? Yeah.
Wow.
So
I
maybe
did not see that. No.
Yeah, maybe it comes down to who has the longest drive. And, maybe Drake May's, got a little 350 Bryson DeChambeau in there. So, who knows? But that's who I'm going to go with. Could be Jaden Daniels, maybe a wild card. Who knows? But I say they go Drake May.
I think by just looking at my face, Maura's face, and Danny's face, it seems like we all disagree with you. I genuinely don't know who's going to end up being the better quarterback in this draft. I'm not a quarterback guru. No one really knows, but it sounds like Jaden Daniels is the pick there. He's minus 275 right now, I think, on like betting sites, which is
You had that number ready to go, Joey.
That was right in the chamber ready.
Well, full disclosure, I may or may not have thrown a wager on Jaden Daniels going second overall. I got him at plus 110 though. Now he's at minus 275. So I got him when he was valuable.
Even with that weird elbow he's got going on, you still trust him?
Maybe that is his superpower. Makes him better.
Listen, that's strange.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. But I am surprised to see you go with Drake May at 2. I am.
All right. Well, hey, there should be more surprises down the road. Speaking of which. Breaking news, there's a trade. New England is going to trade back with the New York Giants, who are coming up from 6 all the way to 3. The New York Giants now have the 3rd overall pick. And that means, Danny Morales, you are on the clock with the New York Giants here at 3. But first, before we let Danny pick, Joey and Maura, give him a little bit of time. What do you think about the New York Giants coming up here to 3?
They've been looking at quarterbacks a lot from what you just see in terms of visits and studying. I think they just had Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix. So they're looking at all the quarterbacks, even though they're saying Daniel Jones is our guy. Daniel Jones is our guy.
Yeah.
He is clearly not the guy.
No.
I don't think this is totally out of the picture, to be honest with you. Now, do the Patriots, they would have to get a really good deal to make this move. Maybe they'd go for McCarthy later on. I don't know. But, I'm liking this move for the Giants for sure.
All right.
I do like the move, but I just don't know if New England's the team to trade out, being so needy at quarterback and having quite a few options there. But this is your show. You're in charge, Joe. So I guess we'll just go with what you say. I personally think Daniel Jones is not as bad as everyone makes him out to be. Even as a Cowboy fan, I kind of back Daniel Jones a little bit. But they're obviously going quarterback here. You don't give up that much capital to take an O-lineman or an edge or anything like that. And the fact that Jaden Daniels is still on the board here at 3, I think is what prompted the move. If it was Drake May, I don't think they move up. They got Jaden Daniels. He's right there. He's a playmaker. He's got legs. He can run, kind of like Daniel Jones. Similar-esque. I think he's the guy. I like the upside. They need a spark in New York, and I think Jaden Daniels provides that.
That's a fun pick. I think the Giants, I think the entire Daniel Jones era, in my opinion, can kind of be, crumple down into one idea is like, it hasn't been very fun. Like, there's not been a lot of juice in the Daniel Jones era. They've been good at times, right? And to your point, Daniel, I think Daniel Jones is solid, ultimately. I think he's a quarterback that could do well in a lot of systems in a lot of places. Not terribly exciting, though. Not something you say, I want to watch the New York Giants.
No.
Jaden Daniels, you might want to watch the New York Giants, right?
Yeah, I mean, as a Cowboy fan, I don't really like to watch a lot of Giants games, but if they were on, I'd probably watch them. Yeah.
All right. Well, big trade, shocking trade, and we're now going to go on to the fourth pick, where the third eye Raven himself, Joey Aliberti. You are on the clock. No trades here. Arizona's going to stand pat.
Really?
What does Arizona do?
With JJ McCarthy on the board, I feel like there's genuinely a fair argument to be made that you could just draft JJ McCarthy and then try to trade him after the fact. We're not going to do that here. Monty Austin-Fort is going to go with the most surefire player in this draft. The most surefire wide receiver. It feels like that's come out in a while. And I feel like all this stuff's come out with like Malik Neighbors being really good. And hey, he could be great. Malik Neighbors also had a quarterback that will be the New York Giants in this hypothetical world, starting quarterback or soon to be starting quarterback. Whereas Marvin Harrison Jr.'s quarterback last year is now at Syracuse. So got to put that into perspective. Marvin Harrison is going to be the pick at 4th overall. He's too good to pass up on.
Yeah, and so your logic is why I didn't have a trade here, is because Arizona could have fallen back. They in this scenario, they fielded some offers, but this is a chance to get a generational talent and a guy that they've fallen in love with, and they take him here. Maura, Danny, any quick thoughts on a pretty slam dunk pick, in my opinion?
It just seems like a slam dunk for Minnesota to come up here with all that kind of smoke surrounding them and liking McCarthy, and McCarthy's still there, and or if they even like Drake May.
Yeah.
Whoa! More breaking news! There's been another trade? Oh, there has. The 5th pick will now be chosen by the Minnesota Vikings, who come up and trade with the LA Chargers. The Chargers go back to 11. Minnesota uses that capital. They come up to 5. And that means that, Maura, you're picking for Minnesota here. We'll give you a second to kind of breathe and think about this. Unless you're ready to go.
I think they're coming up for one reason and one reason only, and that's to get their guy at quarterback. One, they have Justin Jefferson on the roster. If they don't make moves at quarterback, I think their relationship is going to sour very, very quickly. So I think they have to get their guy. I don't think Sam Darnold is that guy, so I think they're going to go for JJ McCarthy here. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. I like this move for them. I think it's very realistic. I think it could definitely happen. I have considered the fact that maybe it'll be, maybe they'll jump over the Chargers and try to make moves with the Cardinals again, but I think the Chargers are eager for that draft capital. It's a very deep receiver class. So I like this move for the Vikings.
Danny and Joey, any thoughts?
I agree. It just seems like the most obvious landing spot for him, and that's what everyone's reporting, so it has to be true, right?
One quick thought. I think it's funny how 4 quarterbacks are getting drafted in the top 5. Fully understand why quarterbacks are so important. These teams need quarterbacks. How many of them are not going to be good? 2 at least, maybe 3, 4.
History would show you maybe 4.
Maybe all of them.
Gotta think about that.
The odds of them all 4.
Class.
Yeah.
Last year, the Panthers were so dead set on Bryce Young, and then granted, it wasn't the best landing spot. I would say CJ Stroud had a much easier situation he was going into. But, you got to look at that and kind of consider, is it worth making these huge moves to secure a guy that, you really just don't know what the future holds?
Like the Bills have been saying, though, if you trade up and it works out, no one really cares what you traded to get him. So it's a gamble, and sometimes it pays off.
Of the shots you don't take. That's for sure.
Chiefs and Bills both traded up, and now look where they are. So you never know.
Yeah, Maura, I believe Michael Scott had that quote, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. All right, let's move on. Next up is New England at pick number 6 here. And that belongs to me. they could trade back again and just get a bunch of assets. And because, the QBs here, we've had 4 QBs go, but what if we had 5 QBs go in the top 6? What if they traded back? The whole time they got more picks and they fell in love with a certain guy. He's still there. They get their guy. How about Michael Penix to New England? Top 6 pick. Why not? They get resources. They still get a QB they're falling in love with. New era in New England. Michael Penix, New England Patriot at number 6.
Bit shocking. He just doesn't seem like a Patriot to me. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is.
It's a new era in New England, Dan.
I just don't see it, but I like it.
I think that'd be cool. I think he could take a year, sit behind Jacoby Brissett, and then once the team is, hopefully for him a little better next year, he has a line that will protect him well. He has guys to throw to. It could work out. Everyone's saying he has the best deep ball in this draft class. It's the injury history and the other stuff that kind of makes it questionable. He didn't do great against pressure. He obviously didn't impress against Michigan in the national championship, but it's bold. But again, if they're taking Penix at 5 or 6 or whatever it is, they wouldn't just take him to be like, oh, we need a quarterback, we're just going to take him. They would be sure that he's the guy. And if he is, he is.
And maybe it's a scenario too where Bo Nix they fall in love with too, or it's in this scenario, just hypothetically, and we're having fun. We know we're a big proponent of fun on this podcast. New England is able to do a lot by trading back and getting a guy that they love. I think if they go to the podium and say, hey, we fell in love with Michael Penix. We knew it from the first time we saw him, and it only got stronger. We knew that we could trade back, get more resources, and still go get our QB of the future. And shoot, Maura, to your point, what if he is the CJ Stroud in this class? And it ages so well for them if they did this.
Yeah, but also I think Michael Penix could continue to fall here big time. I think he could, fall even into the second round. I've seen discussions of that. So if I'm the Patriots, I might continue to kind of explore my options and see if I can get more draft capital and still get a quarterback of the future. So I don't know if I would draft here. I think I would kind of see who's willing to take it. Because if you look at the next couple teams, Falcons aren't going to take a quarterback. Titans aren't going to take a quarterback. They're confident in their guy. Bears already took a quarterback. Jets, they're sticking with Rodgers. So you could argue that they could skip back to kind of a mid-round pick unless, of course, one of those teams is going to jump up and try to take Penix. But with Bo Nix still on the board, I'm really liking your chances of having Penix still around in the later first round.
Yeah, the other thing too is next up to your point is Tennessee. And Danny, we're going to go to you for that. But before we do, we haven't had an offensive tackle, and we've only had one wide receiver taken. No edge rushers. It's been obviously QB very heavy. To your point, New England, if they wanted to, could have fallen back even more for someone who was interested in an offensive tackle or one of the other wide receivers. With that being said, Danny Morales, Tennessee Titans, you're playing Brian Callahan in this. You're playing Coach Callie in this situation. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was the perfect lead up there, saying there has been no O lineman taken so far in the draft. This is one of the most obvious landing spots for me in the first round. They have their pick of the litter here with the O lineman, and I think they land the Notre Dame left tackle Joe Alt. He's a mountain of a man, day one starter, shores up that O line. Yeah, I like it. Seems pretty obvious to me. There's a huge hole, huge need, and they get the best player at the position.
Yeah, I like that pick. Alt is kind of the guy that it's almost like there's nothing wrong with him to a point where someone says there must be something wrong with him. 6'8", runs very quickly for, a guy his size, moves well, is all the numbers, the analytics show that he's a good pass and run blocker. And yet people are still skeptical. I think at this point, sometimes in the draft process, cynicism becomes to the forefront. And I'm with you, Dan. I think he's just the cleanest offensive tackle prospect out there.
Yeah, at a certain point, you just have to trust your eyes and trust what you see and stop questioning that maybe he's too good to be true when in reality, he's just that good. And you have secured the position for the next 10 to 12 years.
All right. Let's go to Joey Aliberti and oh my gosh, more breaking news. This is incredible. Not a slow news day here at How About That podcast. The Atlanta Falcons at pick 8 are trading back. But with whom? Oh, it's the Indianapolis Colts coming up over the Chicago Bears at 9 and the Jets at 10. The Colts, with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, decide that they want to make a big move here. Joey Aliberti, from 15 to 8. Do you need a second?
No. Well, I do want to say, what if I just ruined your plans, though? And I was like, they're going to take, and then it's just someone.
Dallas Turner.
They're going to take Bo Nix. You know, they want to get some good quarterback depth behind Anthony Richardson. No. Obviously, they're coming up to get a pass catcher. Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze still on the board. They want one of those two last elite pass catchers. I shouldn't say elite pass catchers. I'll say wide receivers. Elite wide receivers. In this case, to be Michael Pittman's running mate, they're going to go with Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors has that speed that he showed at LSU, that explosiveness. People are comparing him to Jamar Chase and the way he can kind of go up and get those 50-50 balls and just kind of do everything. So I think that would be a huge type of person to have next to Pittman and to help Anthony Richardson kind of get going now.
What are your guys' thoughts, Joey and or Danny and Maura, about not only the pick but the trade?
I like it. I mean, obviously it depends what they gave up. But if you really think Anthony Richardson is your future at quarterback, might as well give him some weapons to throw to. And to have Pittman, Neighbors, and Pierce, you could do worse. So I think they're putting him in a good position to succeed behind a good O-line. I think Neighbors was that missing piece.
I would be surprised if this move happens. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to stay put, but I don't think adding Neighbors to the roster would be a negative in any way. So to go off what Danny said, I think it really depends what you give up, if this pick is worthwhile, but there really can't be any negatives by having that guy on your roster.
Yeah, I'll say an offense with Jonathan Taylor, Malik Neighbors, Michael Pittman, good O-line. It all comes down to Anthony Richardson, but that's a pretty good way to set up your young quarterback. And with that being said, let's move to the 9th pick. Speaking of young quarterbacks, where the Chicago Bears are picking. No trades. They're there. They've taken Caleb Williams. Maura, you're picking for the Bears once again. Who are they selecting here?
Yeah, it's good day to be Chicago. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I think you got to go with Rome Odunze here. Kind of like Joey was saying, he's really one of those last 3 top name receivers. Again, this is a very deep receiver class. But I'm really liking Odunze here. Comes off a 1,640 receiving yard season with 13 touchdowns. Great. Aside from his play, which he's proven time and time again, he also just seems like a really good addition to the culture in Chicago. Really positive mentality, ready to work. I like this addition here to bring in alongside Caleb Williams in the first round.
Yeah, speaking as an Oregon alum, Rome Odunze gives me nightmares. Watching him against Troy Franklin was always kind of a fun. Obviously, it's like 2 pitchers dueling, not going against each other, but it was fun to watch them kind of tit for tat. You go, and I think Rome is fantastic. I think honestly these 3 receivers up the top are worthy of being. It's worthy of having 3 top 10 receivers, in my opinion.
Agree.
I like it. I think a lot of these rookie quarterbacks, their success is predicated on what's around them. Like you look at Brock Purdy, for example, he's got all the weapons around him in a great system. And I think if you give Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift in the backfield, and then DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and now Rome Odunze with Cole Kmet at tight end, he's got everything he needs to succeed. And I like that offense quite a bit.
All right. My voice is cracked. See, I had sinus surgery, not vocal surgery, so no excuse there. All right, let's move on to 10. The New York Jets. Staying put, no trades.
New York Jets.
I think that they go Brock Bowers. I think it's fascinating, to be honest, to look at the actual value of a tight end. in the first round. There's been some kind of cool discussions about that. And is it even worth it? Financially, the amount of money you're going to pay a top 10 tight end is going to be very high up there. Can Brock Bowers, the question is, can Brock Bowers step in and be a top 5 tight end in the NFL day one? I think the answer is yes. I think the Napa kid is a generational talent at tight end. I'm very excited to see what he can do.
Wait. Top 5, like instantly, second he hits the field, do you think he can? Not saying
he can. That's the potential. And that's the reason why, in my opinion, if you're drafting a tight end top 10, that's what you're hoping for. Financially.
I don't think he needs to be top 5 week 1. He's still got to learn blocking. And Sam Laporta broke a lot of molds last year with being able to have that much production as a rookie tight end. But even if he's not like stellar year 1, I still think it's a great draft pick and he has a lot of potential. The athleticism and the playmaking and the yards after the catch and all that stuff is there. It's clear. Like if he's not a star in the NFL, I'd be surprised. I think most people would be. But I don't know, top 5 right off the bat. That's bold. That's bold, Joe.
Well, and again, this is not saying what he will be. I'm saying if you're going to justify taking a tight end top 10 in today's world financially, you're hoping that he can be a top 5 tight end very, very quickly. And I think, if you're making that pick, that's what you're saying. If the Jets were to trade back for some reason, go to 15 and then take him, maybe it says like, hey, we thought the value wasn't there at 10 and we thought that'd be better there. So that's what I'm doing. I say they take Brock Bowers. Aaron Rodgers gets a new weapon. And we'll see what happens there. All right, let me just make sure there's no other trades coming up here. Oh!
Joe chose violence today.
Sure did.
I did choose violence with this one. All right. So with the 11th pick right now, we currently have the Chargers.
Right.
The 12th pick, we have Denver. And the 13th pick, we have Las Vegas. In this scenario, we had a trade. The Chargers are moving back from 11 to 13. Vegas is moving up 2 spots ahead of Denver. Jumping in at this point. Danny, you are the Las Vegas Raiders here at pick 11. I've said you could totally, this would be a scenario where we talked about earlier off camera or off recording, where you could totally say, you know what, Joe, I don't care about your dastardly plans. I'm going to do my own thing. But there's a reason why Vegas, in my opinion, would trade up here above Denver to 11.
Yeah, I think this one's, again, kind of obvious. The Bo Nix to Denver has been linked quite a bit. The Sean Payton system would work well with Bo Nix, but I think the Raiders know that. And you look at their quarterback room, and it is Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Anthony Brown. So there is a lot to be desired in that room. There's a position for someone to come in to be a day one starter. And if you look who's left on the board after Bo Nix, it is a steep, steep fall off. And the Raiders see that. They see who's ahead of them. They make the move. I like it. They get Bo Nix. He is their guy.
So we've had 6 QBs in the top 12. Mauro, if that were to happen on draft day, including a plethora of trades, what would your reaction be?
I would just be enjoying it. I would be popping some popcorn. I would be sitting back, enjoying it, just waiting for the rest of the night to unfold. I think it's a real possibility that they could take Bo Nix here for sure. I wouldn't be shocked, but there's a lot of moves going around right now. I'm a little overwhelmed personally.
You know who might be overwhelmed is the third eye Raven himself, Joey Aliberti, who's now on the clock with Denver. Denver, they were already printing Bo Nix jerseys ready to go. They said, hey, Broncos country, let's ride with Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix is gone. Joey.
I want to say first, very quickly, after dealing with what they dealt with Derek Carr and then Jimmy Garoppolo, it feels like Bo Nix is a similar style quarterback, just kind of sits in the pocket, not much mobility, and doesn't have a cannon of an arm. Do they really want to go through that again? Sean Payton, different story. You can get the Drew, not saying he is Drew Brees, but, he can process really well like Drew Brees did. He can do everything that Sean Payton needs him to do. Whatever. It's in the past. He's gone. Broncos are on the clock. They're going to go with Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from Alabama, to get a running mate, a fellow Crimson Tide cornerback to run alongside Patrick Surtain. And they're just going to keep bulking up that defense. There's no quarterbacks. There's nothing they can really do to upgrade that. The wide receivers, after those top three, too much of a talent gap. Terrion Arnold is probably the best cornerback in this class, and they're just going to have those outsides locked up.
Wow. So, Danny, let me get your reaction on this. Denver goes from potentially getting their franchise QB to now getting a corner. It seems actually it's very similar to what they did with Pat Surtain. Remember that year, there were also kind of rumors maybe they'll trade up, get a QB. They didn't. Instead, they got Pat Surtain, who's been fantastic. Again, a little bit more substance rather than flash, maybe?
Yeah, as a Bronco fan, you got to be pissed. You think you're going to get your franchise quarterback, and then you walk away with a corner. And then you look at the Broncos roster and what they're doing, and it's like, what are they going to have to win games 7-0 next year? Like, they might be the boringest team in football to watch. But a win's a win, whether it's 7-0 or 35-34. So it's interesting. I as a Broncos, if I was a Broncos fan, I would not be happy come next Thursday if this was a situation.
I think you're going to have to hope that those 7 points are off a pick six right now based on that draft pick.
Hey, it would be an exciting corner duo. It's been kind of interesting to watch. Corner first-round picks actually haven't panned out at the hit rate that people might expect to. Pat Surtain obviously did. Maybe Denver gets lucky again with another Alabama corner. All right, let's move on to pick number 13. Maura, this is you, right?
Yep, Chargers are back up unless something crazy happens.
Nope, no breaking news here. Chargers they've traded back twice. In this scenario, they've recouped a lot of picks. They had a lot of cap issues. Now they get a chance to fill some picks and some holes later on.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm liking the Chargers draft so far. I like the moves that they made. I know this is kind of contradictory because we just talked about how there's a high risk drafting a cornerback in the first round, but I do think with a very versatile player like Cooper DeJean on the board, I think they're going to have to go with him. I think he's very versatile, can play pretty much any position. He can play safety, he can play cornerback. He's had a lot of success at both positions. He can also serve as a punt returner, which is going to be valuable during kickoffs, especially with the new kickoff rules. So I think that this is a great pick for them. They already got their receiver, and now they need to bolster that secondary.
I like it a lot. Any quick thoughts, Joey and Danny, on that?
All I've heard Harbaugh talk about is tackles. So I'd be surprised if they did that and then didn't pick a tackle, especially in this deep of a draft class. Cooper DeJean's interesting though, so who knows? There's also Quinton Mitchell on the board. He's obviously gained a lot of traction during the pre-draft process, but yeah, I think it'd surprise people for sure.
I'm with Joey on that. I think they have talked a lot about tackle, and tackle seems like the obvious need. But if you like Cooper DeJean, why not go get him?
Why not?
He's got a really high ceiling, and I think he could be a good get for them.
I think Cooper DeJean, at the very least, it's just gonna be fun to see what teams do with him, and how he's employed, and we'll find out come fall. All right, next up, New Orleans Saints at 14. I think they'd be thrilled with this. They're going to go get Talisi Fuanga from Oregon State. They're going to get a tackle. They're going to get a versatile guy that could play a couple of positions if need be. And they're going to get a guy who just plays with vicious intensity and throws dudes around. He's fun to watch. It means more for an Oregon guy to say such glowing things about an Oregon State Beaver. So take that for what it is. Saints, Talisi Fuanga, pick 14.
They need a tackle. They need a tackle bad. Their two biggest needs right now on their team are left tackle and right tackle. So it's if they do anything, I personally think the only way they can understandably not take a tackle 14th overall is if Brock Bowers somehow falls to 14. Other than
I
that,
think so.
I can't see it.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Simple pick, simple answers. Next up, dog. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons at 15, who have traded back from 8. This could work out well for them. I'm not going to tip Danny's pick here or anything, but if they're able to go from 8-15 and from 8 to 15 and have the board the way it is, picks, you could get some more resources. I think that they'd be thrilled about this, but it depends on who you pick. Danny?
I think we're both thinking the same here. I pick 8. I'm pretty sure that Dallas Turner was their guy. And the fact that you can trade back down to, what are we at now? 15? No. Yeah, 15.
Yeah.
Get some more draft capital and you still get your guy. There's a huge need at pass rush for the Falcons. And depending who you ask, him or Latu, they end up landing the best one in the draft here, the best all-around edge defender. And the fact that, like I said, you can pick up more capital and still get your guy, well played. That'd be a slam dunk.
Yeah, that's something that new head coach Raheem Morris, I'm sure, would be thrilled about. Maura, any thoughts on just how the Falcons were able to play this?
I like it a lot. I think they're going to be happy to gain some draft capital and still get that guy that they've had their eyes on for a while now. So I think this is a good move by them.
All right. Well, now let's move on to pick 16. We're halfway through almost. The Seattle Seahawks and Joey Aliberti on the clock here. Joey, where do the Seahawks go?
It could definitely be easy to take a defensive player with new coach Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator with the Ravens last year. Obviously a defensive-minded guy, but I think they want to shore up the offensive line here a little bit. And why not go for the most versatile offensive lineman out there? Get Troy Fautanu from Washington. He can play left tackle. He can move like crazy, as we've talked about multiple times on this podcast. He can also slide into guard. I think his versatility just gives the Seahawks a lot of freedom and comfortability to kind of take him, maybe fill out the rest of the offensive line or whatever they need to in the draft, or just pick up a guy or two after the draft. So I'm going to go with Fautanu here.
I think that would be a dream landing spot. He gets to stay in the Northwest. Yeah. He's not forced to play tackle day one because they just invested in Cross and Lucas. So you can kick him in a guard, kind of get his feet wet, and then if he ends up being a better tackle than one of those two, you can kick him out and switch. But for him, I think that'd be a dream scenario.
I think one thing we're seeing, too, is because these QBs went 6 in the top 12, some good players are falling. And I think in this case, not to say that this would be like a fall for Fautanu, obviously, but this is a good spot for him. And I think teams are getting good players now, which brings us to 17. And Maura, no trades. Jags. I will say, though, by the way, there are still some trades hiding in this first round. That's what we call a tease.
Okay. All right.
Maura, no trades here. 17, Jacksonville Jaguars. You know this team well.
Yes.
What do they do?
So I think that they're going to be tempted to take a receiver here. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to still be on the board. I don't think they're going to give in to those temptations. I think that the true need is at cornerback here. I could see a situation where maybe the Buffalo Bills try to come up and secure Brian Thomas Jr. I could see it. I would be on the lookout for a trade later there. However, I think they're going to stay put here, go with their gut, and go with Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. He's proved time and time again that he can be that guy, and this is exactly what the Jags need. They need to bolster that secondary. They've made a lot of moves this offseason to kind of work on that offense. They have a good amount of receivers. Do they have a true number one receiver? Not really. They might make moves later in the draft, but I think they're going to stick with corner here.
I like it. Guys, any thoughts?
I'm into it. I like it. I think it's a smart move. Safe.
Cool. All right. Well, then let's move on. All right. Next up, we have Cincinnati at 18, and that's where your boy gets the pick. I think this is where we see the first defensive tackle go off the board. And I think the Bengals are going to get a personal favorite of mine, and Byron Murphy, the second from Texas. I just think a guy that they had Geno Atkins for a long time who wrecked shop, on the interior. I think they're able to get another guy who can not only be stout against the run. Again, we've talked about it. He came out of the womb jacked, and he looks like it. But a guy that can get after the quarterback from the interior, kind of let some of their other edge rushers eat a little bit too. Byron Murphy to Cincinnati.
Makes sense.
I think you just sniped the Rams on that one, replacing Aaron Donald with Aaron Donald 2.0.
That may have been a thought of mine, Danny.
We can't
I'm sure
call
it
him
was.
Donald 2.0. Come on.
You'll see.
The whole draft, Joey, is about comps. All right, how many people have been comped to Deebo Samuel since he was drafted? It's unreal. So it's all about comps. It's all about trying to replicate things you've seen previously. These scouts watch a lot of players, so of course their mind's going to go there.
ESPN, sorry to cut you off really fast.
Go for it.
ESPN did a comps thing on quarterbacks, I want to say like a month or a month and a half ago. Caleb Williams was Aaron Rodgers. Drake May was Justin Herbert. Jaden Daniels was Lamar Jackson. Michael Penix, I think, was Tua or something like that. Bo Nix might have been Drew Brees. Like, it's just like, oh, so this is just the best quarterback draft class by a mile we've ever seen in NFL history. Like, I don't know. I think people some people just go a little too crazy on the comparisons.
Yeah, but take these comps with a grain of salt. You know, who is he? Who is Byron Murphy? Which NFL player is Byron Murphy like?
Not Aaron Donald.
How many?
The Dolphins would have been hoping he would be a Christian Wilkins replacement, so now they might be scrambling.
They might be, but speaking of scrambling, Danny was so ready to pick for the Rams at 19, but because Byron Murphy's gone,
so ready.
They say, you know what, we can go back a little bit. And who do they go back with? Maura had the insight earlier. Here comes Buffalo, trading up again. We talked about it. They've traded up and had success before. Here's the Buffalo Bills at pick 19. The Rams go back all the way to 28. The Buffalo Bills are now on the clock. Danny, where does Buffalo go? Do you need more time?
No. I initially thought I would, but then I looked at who's still on the board and why you forced this trade upon me. So the departure of Stephon Diggs leaves a massive hole in that wide receiver room. Josh Allen has nobody to throw to. And the fact that, depending who you ask, I've seen some people think that he could be the best receiver in this class. Brian Thomas is still on the board.
Oh, did we lose Danny?
And I think that they would be pumped. Did I cut out there a little bit?
You did. And redo it really quick, because for the people listening, we have a system where we upload separately, and so it works out, but we didn't hear it, so I just want to make sure that the listeners heard it too. Can you just rehash that, Dan?
Yeah, so basically, Buffalo's pumped that he is still on the board at this point. Huge hole in the wide receiver room, losing Stephon Diggs. And I don't know if you caught this part, but some people think he could end up being the best receiver in this draft come 5 years down the road. Brian Thomas is their guy.
I like it. Joey, what are your thoughts on Buffalo moving up?
It makes too much sense. It's got to be either him or AD Mitchell, I think. Get that bigger bodied guy. They seem like the next two best. I like Ladd McConkey a lot personally. Depending on who I have later in this first round, it could happen. Hey, you never know, Danny. I think Ladd McConkey will be better than one of Brian Thomas or AD Mitchell. I don't know who, but
I
think
would
he's one of the better.
Strongly bet against that ever happening.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Something we're going to have to monitor looking forward, but I like the pick. It makes too much sense.
All right. Well, that was pretty crazy, right?
This is out of control.
Oh my gosh. We're unhinged because another trade. And wait, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers at 20. Where are they going? They're going out of the first round. They're gone. Because you know what they just did? They traded the 20th overall selection to the San Francisco 49ers for wide receiver Brandon Ayuk in a package. Brandon Ayuk goes to Pittsburgh.
Hold on a minute.
Oh,
I like that move. I like that move a lot.
Mike Tomlin gets his look-alike with longer hair. The Steelers make a huge move. San Francisco says, you know what, we like Debo. We're not going to invest too much money right now into having 2 elite receivers. San Francisco now on the clock. Joey Aliberti, I'm going to give you a second because I don't think that was on your radar unless it was, but the San Francisco 49ers say, you know what, we're moving off Ayuk. We're done with this. And Steelers say, we're very happy to take a guy who I think PFF might have had as the number 1 receiver, one of the top 5 receivers last year. Fantastic player. First off, Maura, we'll go to you to get some thoughts. What do you think about this deal?
There's been a lot of talk about Ayuk to the Steelers. There's been a lot of talk about everybody to the Steelers after some crazy moves that they've made this offseason. I like it a lot. The Steelers fan in me, of course. I think with Deontay Johnson gone, I do think George Pickens can be the number 1 receiver, but you still do need to bolster that room. They have Calvin Austin. I like him a lot too, but I think they could take their offense from good to great with this move. And I think if you have a guy that you already know is successful in the league, why not? I like it.
All right. Joey, the 49ers now with the first of their 2 first-round picks are on the clock.
Wow. I'm going to say that they now need an X receiver. Obviously, they need that guy that can kind of go downfield. And as I was just mentioning beforehand, A.D. Mitchell, if it's not Brian Thomas, is that guy. So they're going to go with A.D. Mitchell as the Brandon Ayuk replacement at 20th overall.
Wow. So this is interesting because the Niners now replace Brandon Ayuk with a cheaper option, right? We've seen this move before, and it hasn't necessarily worked out. We've seen, hey, let's trade AJ Brown. We'll go get Treylon Burks. The Niners themselves, they traded DeForest Buckner years ago, coming off a Pro Bowl, fantastic season, to draft Javon Kinlaw in the first round. Just did that swap. It didn't work out. So this would be a bold move for the 49ers. If this were to happen, part of me thinks the package would have to be too enticing to say no to. The Steelers made them an offer they couldn't refuse. So in this case, though, the 49ers get A.D. Mitchell. Danny, just what are your thoughts on just that whole deal?
That sounds strangely similar to a conversation we had on April Fool's Day about a fake trade that came out, except George Pickens was going to the Niners in that deal. So I don't think Pickens is part of this package. But it makes sense financially. I don't know if A.D. Mitchell is ever going to be what Ayuk currently is, but it makes sense from a financial standpoint, so I like it.
All right. Well, let's move on then. We've had some big trades, guys. Whoever orchestrated this plot, God, give him a raise. All right. We'll go to Maura now with the Dolphins. Maura, another team you know well. Miami had a lot of losses this offseason. Yeah, so what do they do?
I think Miami, as hard as it's going to be for Mike McDaniel, this is his first draft pick as a head coach in the league, and I think he's excited. He wants a fast guy. He wants a flashy player. But that's not the route that the Dolphins are going to go. They really need to build the trenches. It's going to be hard to avoid a guy like Johnny Newton, and if Byron Murphy was still available, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer as that Christian Wilkins replacement. But I think they're going to go offensive line here because they did lose some key pieces. Connor Williams is still unsigned. Robert Hunt went to the Panthers. I think they're going to take Graham Barton, very versatile player here, could fill in at center, tackle, guard, wherever you need him. And he has a lot of time, a lot of experience under his belt. He's going to be filling in on that line, a day one starter to help protect Tua and continue success in the run game for the Dolphins.
I like it. Potential guy the Cowboys could be interested in. Danny, what are your thoughts about Graham Barton going?
One of the names I was hoping she would not say, along with JPJ. So at least we still got JPJ on the board, but that move does make too much sense for Miami to pass.
Well, there you go. All right. And now we're going to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. And to be honest with you, with the guys on the board right now, this is kind of tough. I think there's a lot of ways they could go. They need a corner, and there's some corners on the board. I'm also very tempted, no Fletcher Cox anymore, right? Johnny Newton would tempt me here. just get another first round defensive lineman. They know how good these guys are. They've addressed the defensive line a lot, right? But they're a big believer in the rotation. I'm going to avoid the temptation for now. I'm going to go with a corner here. And I'm going to have them taking Nate Wiggins from Clemson. They get a really speedy guy, a guy that can hang with, hopefully for them with some of these receivers in the NFC East. I think that's where they go. They go Nate Wiggins at 22.
Over Kool-Aid McKinstry, huh?
Over Kool-Aid.
Interesting. Okay.
There was salt oozing out of that comment, Dan. All right. Well, let's move on then to Minnesota. Danny Morales. The Vikings with their second first-round pick here. They've already got their guy at QB. Where do they go next?
Look back here. So we landed McCarthy at 5. And now we are back on the board at 22. Well, they got their quarterback, and they still have a need on the defensive line, and arguably the best defensive tackle in the draft is still on the board. So I think they'd be pretty happy to come away with this, and Johnny Newton would be my pick here at 21.
I like it. I think he's another guy that has got that, what we were talking about with Joe Alt, where it's like, there's got to be something wrong with him, right? And obviously he had a little injury, but in the draft process, but had his pro day, apparently was very impressive. I know the Cowboys helped to actually, run that workout. So interesting. Maura, any thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a good move for them. I like it. I think, Johnny Newton in our 1.0 actually fell to the second round. So I think this is probably a little bit more realistic for him. So I don't think he's gonna escape the first round.
I agree. By now, you know what that sound means. And you should also know that we're at pick 24, which should be the team we talk about on this podcast, the Dallas Cowboys. But no, the Cowboys are going to move back. And they're going to move back all the way to 32. And the Kansas City Chiefs are coming up here.
Kansas City Chiefs coming up to 24. Wow.
Coming up all the way to 24. They got some questions at receiver right now. Rashee Rice has got some legal issues that they got to sort out. He was a fantastic player from last year. Even before that, there were some ideas about them potentially taking a receiver. So we'll see. Who's picking, by the way?
Me.
You're up. Well, all right. Kansas City moves up, Joey.
This is a decision that is firmly between Xavier Worthy, the fastest man in the NFL Combine history, or Ladd McConkey, the one who is really, really impressive and Danny's personal favorite. And the Chiefs here are going to go with Ladd McConkey because
no way.
He has route running skills.
What?
4.3, 940. He is really, really good. I genuinely think he will be one of the better wide receivers in this draft class. I don't think he'll be as good as the top 3. He could be the 4th best. Not saying he will. He could.
You traded up for Ladd McConkey.
I didn't make the trade. I just made the pick.
I don't know.
It's the thing with that, and again, maybe this was the Wizard of Oz himself behind the screen trying to manipulate things. The Xavier Worthy Tyreek Hill replacement comp, speaking of comps, Joey, is very hard to ignore, in my opinion. But to your point, you get a guy that can work the slot. Now you have Travis Kelce on one side working the slot, Ladd McConkey on the other. And I think a lot of people don't know how fast Ladd and athletic Ladd is, to your point.
Agree. And they have Hollywood Brown as a field stretcher. And, we don't know what will happen with Rashee Rice. I'm imagining some sort of suspension, but we obviously have no idea what will really happen. So I think that would be a really good trifecta to go along with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes.
I just think it's hard to imagine that Patrick Mahomes would rather throw to Ladd McConkey than Xavier Worthy. But I could be wrong.
I mean, we just might be going back to Joey being a big McConkey fan here, but that's fine.
He's clearly a huge McConkey guy.
I think Lad McConkey has a better career than Xavier Worthy.
Whoa!
I do.
Wow.
He said it.
He said it.
Maybe John Ross soured me a little because of the whole fast guy thing. I honestly thought Xavier Worthy was a really good player at Texas. I also thought that Lad McConkey just wasn't used because of Georgia and that system with Stetson Bennett and then Carson Beck and being behind Brock Bowers, which I mean, Brock Bowers is Brock Bowers. What are you going to do? I think Lad McConkey is really going to be a solid number 2 guy, wide receiver, like Adam Thielen-y type in the NFL.
All right. Well, Joey's a McConk guy, big McConk guy. And now he's off the board. Would that go in the jar for the dad jokes?
Yes.
Yeah, put it in there.
All right, cool. Next up, 25, the Green Bay Packers. Maura, no trades.
All right.
Packers are here, and who are they taking?
Thank goodness, because I'm getting gray hairs from some of these trades. So this is good. This is good. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Olu Fashanu, Penn State, still on the board?
He is, correct.
Right. I think they're going to go there. I think the Packers were a real pleasant surprise in 2023, and I think they're going to look to continue that success this year, obviously. They need depth, but they also need somebody to come in and compete for a starting job on the offensive line. I think it could be between Fashanu and Amarius Mims out of Georgia, but I do think that they're going to go with Fashanu just because he's a little bit higher ranked, higher regarded in this draft. I think they'll happily take him off the board, help protect Jordan Love in 2024.
It's a great pick. It also brings up the question, and I'm curious, Danny, for your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
How many offensive tackles are going to drop? There are so many good ones. And this is kind of from a Cowboys lens of hypothetically, and we'll find out because they've traded back in this case. Could they not only get someone at 24 that could be a game-changing guy at offensive tackle, or could they even get one at 32?
Based off the way the board is falling right now, I mean, when the Cowboys were up, you still had Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, my guy, Tyler Guyton. You had a lot of options. Don't give me that look, Joe. And so it's pretty crazy to imagine there's that many options on the board still at 24. But with all these skill position guys pushing these guys down the board, I kind of like what I see, and I can only hope that that's how it really does play out.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. All right, let's move on. Next up, Tampa Bay Bucks at 26. I think there's a couple options, and Maura, you can touch on this after I go. There's some good options on the board here. I think that they go edge with this pick. And the question is who? They got Jared Verse and Liatu Latu. I think maybe with the Florida connection, they might go Jared Verse here, but give me Liatu Latu for this draft. A guy I think is a fantastic edge rusher. Former fireman, so he's got Danny's heart too. I think that he's a guy that could do some real damage out there in Tampa Bay. Maura, what are your thoughts?
This is who I'm hoping they take. I almost even messaged you, but for the integrity of the mock draft, I did not. But I'm real glad you read my mind. I think this would be a fantastic pick for them. Last year, Yaya Diaby led the team with 7.5 sacks. They really need a guy who can line up as well and really just kind of disrupt plays. And I think there is no better man for the job than Liatu Latu. I would love this pick for them.
All right, I like it. Okay, next we have 27 and the Arizona Cardinals. So they've already picked once. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. Danny, where does Arizona go next?
Well, I think they filled their biggest need with Marvin Harrison Jr., so you land the best receiver in the draft. And then kind of looking at their roster, they're pretty solid at the tackle situation. Jonah Williams coming over from Cincinnati, Paris Johnson at left tackle. But I can't help but notice a bit of a hole at center. And as much as it pains me to do this, as much as I'd love him to be a Cowboy, Jackson Powers Johnson to the Cardinals, put it in there.
Wow, I like it. Joey, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you two are in love with Jackson Power Johnson.
Are you
And,
not?
not in love. I think he can be a good center prospect. Seems like it's going to work out for him. You think you might as well induct him into the Hall of Fame the way you talk about him.
I'm a little shocked he fell this far, to be honest with you. I think
Joey,
that's who the Steelers would maybe want to take. But obviously that trade was just far too enticing for them. But if he makes it down here, I don't see how you don't take him.
I think my only question is, will the sizing of his gold jacket be the same from when he retires from when he enters day one? Because if they want, they could just size it now. But I don't know if they have to resize it. Is it worth the trouble? Joey, do you think they could do that?
I don't know. He moves so fast. They might ask him to shed a couple pounds and play running back eventually. You never know.
Put him at QB, man, for all we care. I think he'd be fantastic. All right. Now we have pick. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, nothing.
All right. Now it's pick 28 because the Rams, remember, have traded back all the way to 1928. And the Rams are moving back again, but not far. This is a slight one. Just a slight one. They're going to move back to 30. So they're going to move back. Baltimore is coming up from 30 to 28. They're jumping, mind you, the Detroit Lions. Just throwing that out there. So now Baltimore 28. It goes Baltimore 28, Detroit 29, LA Rams 30. And forgive me, who's on the clock right now?
Me.
All right, Joey. Do you need a second or?
I need to figure out who the Ravens tackles are really quickly.
Maura, did that give you more gray hair?
That one I'm okay with.
Just a subtle move.
Very curious to see who Joey goes for here.
You got Ronnie Stanley and Daniel Falele from Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
Danny, can you say that one more time?
Falele?
Sorry, there must be some connection issues. One more time. I'm sorry.
You heard me the first two times.
Falele.
My favorite was the first time. Had a little rhythm to it.
I kind of liked it. So they could one of those tackles could fix. So Joey, what do you do?
Yeah, I think they're going to fix Danny's good old friend Daniel. I don't even want to try to pronounce it. And they're going to get themselves a right tackle, and they're going to go big. They're like, you know what? Go big or go home. We're going Armarius Mims at 28, the right tackle out of Georgia. So now they got Ronnie Stanley, who's a very good left tackle, and another massive, because Falele, or however you pronounce it, is a huge man. So now they have two enormous right tackles.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Very Ravens pick. That's very fitting. I like that.
Extremely. And I think it's interesting that Baltimore and the Lions are so close to each other because I feel like they have similar ideas about drafting, like in terms of like, I could see Baltimore saying, hey, I know who the Lions might pick. Let's jump them. So interesting. All right. Speaking of Lions, let's go to them. And Maura, you're on the clock with the Lions.
I think this is tough because there is so much talent left. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry and Jared Verse, and I think those are the two players that it's going to come down to for them. If both of them make it this far, I'd be stunned. But I think just because they do need help at corner and it's a wise investment, I think they're going to go McKinstry here, unless he was already snagged, but I don't think he was.
No. He was not, yeah. So Nate Wiggins and Terran are the only two corners, I believe. So.
All right, yep, I'm going to go with him. I like this pick for the Lions, but I'm also curious what you guys think. I think the Lions are such a well-rounded team that there isn't necessarily like a huge pressing need, but I do think that they're gonna go a defensive player here, especially because of the last draft and the success that they had on offense.
The only guy that tempted me, other than that corner there, was Jared Verse for them, and just to have verse on one end. Anthony, or why am I blanking?
Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson. Jeez. Sorry, sinus surgery in my head. Aiden Hutchinson on the other. And I know they've got some other pass rushers too, but to be able to have a rotation like that seems pretty daunting.
I do like that too. I think that's a serious possibility.
I agree with you guys. Looking at their front right now, it's Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader. So they got some beef up front. And then they bring over Marcus Davenport, who didn't really pan out. So if you could put Jared Verse there, that would be pretty nice. But to pair Kool-Aid McKinstry with Carlton Davis, who they just brought over from Tampa, that's a pretty good combo in secondary. And the Lions can get torched in the secondary.
The Lions are a team to watch out for. Just and moving forward, they've built this thing pretty well. All right, well, let's move on then. And now we're going to go to 30, where the Rams are finally on the clock. They haven't had a first-round pick since 2017, I believe, and they're going to just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. They want to draw it out, but they're finally going to take someone here. No trades. They're finally going to take someone. And who do they take? I actually believe this is going to be his first pick ever as head coach with them, which is wild. So in this case, there's some good tackles on the board, and I think they're going to go there. They're going to take J.C. Latham, Alabama. They're going to shore up that offensive line. And then they're going to give more time to throw to Cooper Kupp and this sinus surgery is Puka Nacua. So there you go. All right. J.C. Latham to the Rams. Any thoughts, guys?
Did you see that report that the Rams had their entire staff meet with Chop Robinson yesterday?
I did.
Like a full Rams contingent met with this guy.
Yeah, and that could be an option there too. Sean McVay is an offensive guy. Hard to take away an offensive pick from a guy that's been waiting so long for this opportunity.
It's not like they're loaded at tackle either, so I could see that.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on then. Now we got San Francisco picking for the second time with pick 31, right before the Cowboys at 32. So, Danny, I'm going to ask you to take off your bias hat for a second here. And I know there's probably someone you want Dallas to take, but the Niners have now addressed wide receiver. They got A.D. Mitchell. Where do they go next?
You're going to have to give me a second here because this is not a pick that I've put 2 seconds of thought into all offseason because I can't stand the Niners.
All right, well, we'll give you a second here. Joey, just what are your thoughts on how this first round has gone? The trades, if this were to actually happen on draft night, I think it'd be enjoyable.
I think it'd break a record for trades in the first round too. Do you have the exact amount of trades that have actually happened
in this draft? Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me do some calculations. Do you know what the record is?
I don't. I can figure that out, but it's got to be up there. I mean, and also for the fact that the offensive tackles, I feel like for the most part, other than Joe Alt, have really just not gone early. And it seems like a lot of people are mock drafting that to happen. Mm-hmm. So that'd be it's obviously just because of the 6 quarterbacks getting drafted and all that stuff. So that would be a really interesting twist this first round.
We've had 8 or 9 trades. It's one of those. I think it's 8. So
I think I'm ready, Joe.
Let's do it.
So the Niners took A.D. Mitchell with that last pick, and looking at their roster, there's not a ton of holes, but the Niners are always dominant up front. And looking at it now, you got Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins as your interior guys with Leonard Floyd across from Nick Bosa. He's good, but I don't think he's scaring too many offensive coordinators. And when I see this player, I think he is a perfect fit for the Niners. He just looks like a Niner to me. And it is one Darius Robinson out of Missouri. They like that size on the D-line. At 6'5", 285, I think he fills a need for them. They just lost God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Armstead to the Jaguars. Put in Darius Robinson. There you go.
I think that's a very interesting pick, but I think that could definitely happen. To your point, they sneaky have some. I don't know if holes is the right way to describe it, but their depth on the defensive line is not what it was in years past. Get a guy that could do multiple things. Get a guy who's versatile. I think that's a sneaky pick. And I think the Leonard Floyd addition for them is really good. But to your point, he's getting up there a little bit in age. How often does he need some respite? You know, I think maybe a guy like a versatile piece like Darius Robinson would be good there.
I forgot about Drake Jackson. Sorry.
Oh, good. I like this pick, but I do just want to say I'm looking at our list right now, and I took Kool-Aid McKinstry at 29, not Jared Verse, so he is still available. Just saying. If that changes things.
I think Danny's solid, yeah.
All right.
I saw it.
All right. Well, there's no better way to close this out than with the Dallas Cowboys and with the third eye raid himself, Joey Aliberti. Very interesting board left for the Cowboys. They have some offensive tackles they could take. Shoot, if they wanted to pair another edge rusher with Micah Parsons, which we've talked about in the pod before, they could. If they wanted to get weird and, kind of like what Peter Schrager had the other day and take a wide receiver that happens to be really fast and just try to outscore everyone, they could. Shoot, if they want to take Jonathan Brooks, they could. Joey, what do the Cowboys do with this final pick at 32?
I feel like Danny set me up here to leave me no choice but to take Tyler Guyton. I think he
sure did.
Because of that, I really don't want to take him. I'd love to take Edger and Cooper. Maybe Danny, like we were talking about on the last episode, and just maybe sneak up and take a quarterback, get that 5th-year option. Dak Prescott's replacement.
Oh,
that'd be a real fun offseason twist for the Cowboys.
No,
I hate to say it, but they have to go Tyler Guyton here. We have to play right into Danny's hands. Right tackle, probably would move over to left tackle and just let Terrence Steele play on that right side. Didn't allow any sacks in his 12 starts with Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure it was. If it was any sacks, it was like 1. Obviously still a very raw player. He hasn't played a ton, somewhat similar to Armarius Mims, but Dallas needs tackle help, and he's the best that is left.
I'm happy. And it drives me nuts where it's like all these fans and all these different podcasts and stuff, they're like, they would be so mad if Tyler Guyton's the guy. They're like, oh, God, if everyone's off the board and we end up with Tyler Guyton, it's like the pick, which I don't understand. Like, the guy's a mountain of a man. He's got freakish athleticism. Oh, I paused.
Danny, we got you.
You lost me again for a sec.
Yeah, you want to rehash it really quick?
Yeah, not sure where I left off, but I think he's getting
mountain of a man.
Mountain of a man.
Yeah, mountain of a man, moves like a freak, and I think he's getting just wrongfully criticized. And I think Cowboys fans, we'd be happy to get him on the left side. Yes, he did play right tackle at Oklahoma, but that was Dylan Gabriel's blind side. So he's still raw. He's got the tools. He's got the size, kind of like Tyron Smith did. So give the guy a chance.
Would you be more interested, Danny, as a Cowboy fan, in an offensive tackle that with a higher ceiling or someone who you think could come in day one and compete? Because maybe in this case, let's hypothetically say Tyler Guyton is a guy that can project very, very well, right? But may struggle early on. Still a guy that was a tight end a couple of years ago. Would you rather take that risk, or would you rather have someone who could step in day one and kind of handle things a little bit better?
Sorry, I lost you for a second there, too. It cut out at the end.
Yeah, who would you want, someone projectable or someone you could step in day one?
What the fuck?
All right, we're going to move on. Danny, we're going to move on from you.
Some major difficulties here.
Yeah, well, you got the pick in. That's all that matters. So, what a draft. That was fun. I'm going to read off the picks really quick. And then just really quickly. Okay, the Bears at number 1 take Caleb Williams. The Commanders at 2 take Drake May. The New York Giants at 3 take Jaden Daniels, traded up to go get him. The Arizona Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4. The Vikings also traded up to go take J.J. McCarthy at 5. New England gets Michael Penix, trade back, still get a QB they like at 6. Tennessee Titans take Joe Alt, first offensive tackle off the board. Indianapolis Colts take Malik Neighbors. Bears go Roma Dunze at 9. New York Jets take the first and only tight end in Brock Bowers. Las Vegas also takes a QB here, jumping Denver at 12 to take Bo Nix. The Broncos settle for Terrion Arnold, another corner from Alabama. The Chargers get Cooper DeJean. New Orleans at 14 gets Talisi Fuanga, offensive tackle. Atlanta then takes Dallas Turner from Alabama at 15, a guy they potentially could have got at 8 if they stayed there. The Seattle Seahawks take Troy Fountainu at 16, stays right in the Pacific Northwest. The Jaguars take Quinion Mitchell at 17. Bengals take Byron Murphy. Bills take Brian Thomas to replace Stephon Diggs. The 49ers ship Brandon Ayuk to Pittsburgh, take their pick at 20, and then take A.D. Mitchell from Texas. Miami Dolphins get Graham Barton, a versatile offensive lineman. The Eagles take Nate Wiggins from Clemson to shore up their secondary. The Vikings get Johnny Newton, second defensive tackle off the board from Illinois. The Chiefs trade up to take Ladd McConkey. Joey.
So bad.
Joey.
Hell yeah, they do.
Packers then take Olu Fashanu at 25. The Bucks take Liatu Latu at 26. Jackson Powers Johnson at 27. Someone didn't write what team that was, so hold on. Cardinals take Jackson Powers Johnson at 27. Ravens get Amarius Mims, trading up from 30 and overcoming the Detroit Lions, who at 29 take Kool-Aid McKinstry. The Rams take J.C. Latham. The 49ers shore up the defensive line with Darius Robinson from Missouri. And at 32, your Dallas Cowboys select Danny's guy, Tyler Guyton. That was fun. Maura, thank you so much for coming on. Can you breathe now that the suspense and surprise is over?
Absolutely. I may need to take a nap, just kind of, sit on this for a while, but I like it. I thought 2.0 was very fun. And the only thing I'm really stunned about is the amount of quarterbacks taken. I think that's, and of course McConkey, because that was out of pocket. But this was a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, all right. We'll tune in for the rest of the pod. We got some other things to talk about. But again, thank you, Maura. And thanks for listening to Mock Draft 2.0 from Lone Star Live and GulfLive, and the first of How About That podcast. All right. That was longer than I expected for a mock draft, but that was a lot of fun. Danny, quick thoughts on just a mock draft filled with trades that you didn't see coming.
A lot of curveballs. I would be on the clock with the next pick, and then I was ready to go, and you'd throw a trade at me, and I was completely thrown off, and then I was just scrambling as to what I need to do, who's still on the board. But it was fun. It's always fun to play GM for a day.
What are your thoughts on the Cowboys? We talked a little bit about this, but thoughts on them coming away with Guyton after trading back. Hypothetically, in this case, let's say they pick up maybe another 2 and a 4th or something like that. They get some more resources to fill holes. What are your thoughts if they were able to trade back and still get an offensive tackle that could potentially step in day one?
As the only Tyler Guyton truther, I think, on this planet, I'm happy with it. And I think that is a dream scenario. If you can move yourself back, stay in that first round, get some capital, hopefully you get back into that 4th round, because as me and Joey talked about last episode, there's like a 100-pick gap between your 3rd and your 5th. So if you can bridge that gap with someone and still get a developmental yet could possibly still be a day one tackle in Tyler Guyton, I'd love it. I'd probably be the minority in the pick that loves it, but I like it.
Yeah, I think it would be good for them too. I think the biggest news though from that trade was how much. So Joey always gives me crap for being an Oregon guy, for being a homer, he says. And this guy trades up from 32 to 24 to go get Ladd McConkey.
Whoa. Hold on. I did not trade up. I did not make that decision. That decision was made for me. I made the best pick for the Kansas City Chiefs that I could have with the situation that was given.
But you're a McConk guy. You're a big Ladd McConk guy.
I am. I think he was almost unguardable at the Senior Bowl, which was, it's always, not to say that's like an automatic indication that you're going to be a great NFL player, but it's a good sign. He impressed at the NFL Combine, and I really think if you put him in an offense where they pass the ball to anyone that's not named Brock Bowers, I mean, I don't want to crap on Georgia's offense too much, but I just think if he's given the right opportunity and he's able to develop and do all these things, he can be a really good complementary receiver. I don't think he can be an elite wide receiver, but I think he can be really good.
So you're saying he'll never be like a Xavier Worthy type of receiver?
He will not be. No, I don't want to say anything bad about Xavier Worthy. I don't know. I was going to say something mean, but I don't want to say anything mean about him. Xavier Worthy, sure, he has a higher ceiling. He can have that. I mean, I hate the Tyreek Hill comparison because, like we talked about with the Aaron Donald thing. What? Because he's fast? What? He's the only fast wide receiver that the NFL.
Joey, what are comps for? Why do people comp players? Why?
To give you an accurate depiction of what they should expect.
No, to give you an indication of what their skills might translate to. What kind of skills do they remind you of? And there's no other person other than John Ross, speed-wise, from a wide receiver perspective, that compares to Xavier Worthy and Tyreek Hill.
I understand from like a 40 speed standpoint, but I don't know. Also, Tyreek Hill is like, he's shorter. He's like 5'10", 5'11", whatever. He's a big dude, though. He's ripped.
He's compact.
He is 165, probably 170 soaking wet. That's a big difference.
Question, was Tyreek Hill that jack, though, coming out of college?
No, probably not. Probably not, out of West Alabama. And there is a reason, I think, beyond his speed, why Xavier Worthy is being picked so high. He's a good playmaker. He's a good player. I can see him having success in the NFL. But I think Ladd McConkey has a better chance of being better.
You know, they always compared Ryan Leaf to Peyton Manning, you know, those careers. Jordan and I'm literally forgetting the guy that got picked ahead of Michael Jordan right now.
Bowie, Sam Bowie.
Sam Bowie. Sorry, Blazers fans. They always compare, you know, people like that, and I think one day we'll be comparing Ladd McConkey to Xavier Worthy because of Joey. So their careers are tied. You did it.
Can I also say, if you look at Daniel Jeremiah's rankings that came out, what was it, a week or so ago? Ladd McConkey's ranked 34th, Xavier Worthy 35th.
Well, what does he know?
Yeah, I don't know what Daniel Jeremiah knows.
Nothing.
He's not good at his job. Psych. He's really good. Okay. All right. Well, that was fun, guys. Let's go over some news and notes really quick from a Cowboys perspective. Not going to take too long on this. One news and note that we talked a little bit about this on the pod or on the mock draft. And I just thought it'd be funny. Washington is hosting all the quarterbacks at the same time, and they're going to Topgolf and to dinner. I think it would be so funny, like, just to be a fly on the wall for that, of like, hey, like, you could be the number 2 overall pick. You could be the number 2 overall pick. Danny, what do you just think about that whole thing? And how do you think that's going to go? Like, do you think that some guys are going to be like the over competitive at Topgolf, you know, trying to swing out of their shoes? Some guys are trying to play it cool. How do you think that goes?
For sure. I mean, my question is, like, what's the point? Like, why are you bringing all these guys to Topgolf? Like, for what? To see who has the best drive? To see who has the best golf swing? Like, how well can you really get to know these guys at Topgolf? Maybe you have a different take on that, but it's very interesting. It's an interesting take to the pre-draft process.
It's really interesting. But you know, one thing I have to remind myself about the draft process is just how overthinking some of these GMs and executives can be, or how neurotic they can be, and about how obsessive they can be about little things. I think all the time about the difference in the 49ers mind of taking Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers. And apparently, like, you know, this is kind of like in the ether. One of the things they did was they saw Alex Smith like hold a door open for someone at that dinner, and Aaron Rodgers didn't, or something like that. And they're like, you know what, that guy has a lot of respect, and that's why we're going to take him over Aaron Rodgers. You know, and it's funny, just the little things that sometimes go into the draft process that are the reasons why one guy gets picked over another. So I don't know, maybe Washington's trying to see who holds the door open for someone at Topgolf.
Kind of reminds me of the movie Draft Day, when they're like, who went to his party? His teammates didn't even go to his birthday party. It's just funny, the things people, not that that's accurate, it's a movie, but the things that people will latch onto as to reasons why not to draft someone.
Yeah, and sometimes I think it might be confirmation bias too, where like maybe you're looking for it, but who knows? I just thought that was very funny. Joey, do you golf at all?
I do.
You think at the Topgolf you're out driving Drake May?
No, I am actually terrible at driving. It's by far the worst part of my game. But You might be thinking about it the wrong way. What if it's not a long drive competition? What if it's a short game? They want to see how nice of hands they have around the green. A little closest to the pin type of action. You never know.
So you're kind of the guy too. Your short game is better than your long game, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of the guy that rather work in the slot. Use some quickness there, kind of anticipation. That's your golf game is the slot rather than deep ball, correct?
Yes.
So this is why you like Ladd McConkey so much. You'd rather have someone who can work intermediately rather than take the top off. You don't like the big drive.
I like Tyreek Hill more than I like Ladd McConkey. Tyreek Hill is unstoppable. If I could drive the ball 350 yards, I would. It's just something I don't have in the repertoire at the current time.
All right. Okay, moving on to Cowboy stuff on that note. The Cowboys signed someone, Danny.
Yeah, you could say that.
They signed, another Oregon. See, these Oregon, I'm telling you, there's got to be some Oregon influence here in the Cowboys. They signed former Oregon running back Royce Freeman, who's bounced around, formerly was drafted by the Broncos, has kind of bounced around a little bit. This is not going to stop them, Dan, from drafting someone. Not at all.
No, this does nothing to what their plan was going into the draft prior to signing him. To me, it reminds me of the Ronald Jones signing last year, to which he'd never even, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he ever took a snap in a regular season game for the Cowboys. And you could say that Ronald Jones was even better than Royce Freeman. That's up for debate. But when I got the ESPN alert from, I believe it was Todd Archer on my phone, it said Cowboys sign, and I got excited, and then it said Royce Freeman. I've learned to tamper my expectations anytime I get a Cowboys sign X player, because it's not going to be a big name. It doesn't really do anything. It's just an extra body in the room. I don't know. Doesn't do much for me, as I'm sure it doesn't do anything for most Cowboys fans. But hey, they're all in.
The one thing I will say, Oregon bias may be on here. I'm trying to take it off. The one thing I will say, the difference between, in my opinion, Royce Freeman and Ronald Jones is, if you look at the Cowboys last year, especially early on in the season, they struggled to punch things in north-south, right? To just get those 2 to 3 yards at the goal line they needed. Royce Freeman is a big body guy who only runs north-south, right? So this is a guy that hypothetically could fill that one very specific role for them. Obviously, you'd have to prove that in training camp, and you kind of hope Rico Dowdle could do that. But we'll see. That's the one factor about this, and it does give them a little bit of insurance based on how the draft goes. It also opens up the idea that you don't have to take a specific guy in the draft. Maybe you want to take a Jalen Wright to add even more speed to go with Rico's a little bit more all around, I guess, in this case, and then having a big body guy like Royce Freeman. It also makes me question a little bit what they think about Hunter Lipke in terms of a short yardage guy for next season. Just something to monitor during training camp.
It also kind of scares me that they bring in an insurance policy in case that the running backs they like fall off the board, and they do wait till round 6 or 7 to go with your guy, or Rasheen Ali, as kind of their game plan for the season, which would be a nightmare.
I like Rasheen a lot. I think he'd be a good pick, but also I think that they should address the position earlier.
You can't sell a 1-2 punch of Freeman to Ali.
That sounded like a boxing matchup.
Oh God.
Yeah, that'd be a good card. All right, now we're moving to the last news and note. And it's kind of a brief thing, but this might spark our ending with Morales. What's on Morales' mind? Stephen Jones went on 105.3 and Fan the other day, earlier this week, and was asked about the difference between what they perceive as all in versus what fans perceive. And, he said the normal things, hey, there's different meanings to it. But he also had a quote about, here, let me pull up the exact quote here. Hold on. But he also had a quote about like what they've done previously in terms of spending. And the quote was that we spend max money year in and year out. All 32 teams can only spend the same amount of money over a 5-year stretch. When we're all said and done, we max out our salary cap every year. And it's something we talked about with Joey Ickes. I wrote an extensive breakdown of their finances in terms of cash spending versus cap spending, which we know can be manipulated and different. They're scheduled to spend over $100 million less than the Eagles, for example, this coming season in terms of active cash, even though their cap hits are similar. Danny, what was your reaction just to hearing that? And if that wants to be what's on your mind, and then we can close out with that, go ahead. Or if you have something else you want to touch on too, go for it.
When they say that, because we talked to Joey Ickes, and that statement just simply is not true. Like, we learned from a finance guy that they are not spending all their money. They have to find ways to get to that floor to make sure that money is spent. And so when they come out to the media and tell us that, it just seems like a bold-faced lie, which it's frustrating. But yeah, that leads me to something I've been thinking about. And it's when you texted me this, the first thing I texted you is I think they are delusional. And it really makes you question the people in charge making these decisions. And I was thinking, I was like, do we need a new GM? Do we need an outside face? Do we need something fresh, like a new start? Because what we've seen recently is the people making the decisions up there aren't really making the right decisions. And I look at a team like the Houston Texans, where they were at the bottom of the South, didn't have a whole lot. They had draft capital. That's about it. And then they bring in someone like Nick Caserio from the outside. And now they are a top 4, top 5 team in the AFC. It's like if they can make a jump that quick, yet the Cowboys have been stuck in neutral for the past 30 years, maybe it's time for a change at the top. Will it ever happen? No, probably not. But I think it's what this franchise needs.
My only comment to that is I do think it's easier in the NFL to go from bad to good rather than from good to great. And I think that to the Cowboys' credit, their neutral has been really good to great, right? 3 seasons in a row, 10 double-digit wins. Like, these things that's not a bad thing to have, right? And I know this podcast so far, we've kind of been very critical of them. And I think that the Cowboys laid that bed because you don't say you're going all in only to sign 2 free agents, Eric Hendricks and Royce Freeman, regardless of what your perception is of what all in means. Because at the end of the day, perception is reality, and fans perceived it a certain way, and that reality was not met. So we've established that, right? At the end of the day, though, they are still a good team. They have good pieces right now. Whether or not they can secure the future for a quarterback, edge rusher, and their elite wide receiver should be the case, but we'll see. But at the end of the day, to your point, why have you not gotten out of neutral? And I think that that's a great question. And I think, to your point, when fans hear them say they've been maxing out the salary cap, which is true to a certain extent, but not cash spending, it just makes you wonder why the Eagles can do it, right? Why the Browns can do it? Why the 49ers can do it? We've talked about comparison being the thief of joy, but sometimes comparison can also be illuminating about what you're doing or what you're not doing to match up with your competitors.
Yeah, and he also, I'm not sure if it was Jerry or Steven, but I saw a quote where he did indicate that he liked the guys they have on the line in the building, whether that be Willetsko or Asim Richards. And it's too early to have a verdict out on Asim Richards. We haven't seen enough of him, so I can't say whether or not he's going to be a potential starter or not. But to go into the season, if Willetsko and Asim Richards are your starting left tackle, I don't know if that's tipping his hand in the draft. I hope it's not. Peter Schrager is pretty accurate on his mock drafts. He's surprisingly one of the best at it, and he had A.D. Mitchell. I believe it was A.D. Mitchell going to the Cowboys at 24.
It was Worthy.
Xavier Worthy. Okay, even better.
It was Joey's favorite receiver.
Xavier Worthy. And I would assume he's somewhat plugged in. And for
he's very plugged in. So to your point.
So for that mock to come out and the Joneses to have those comments about liking their internal options on the O-line kind of makes you think a little bit. Like, maybe that's the direction they're going. We've talked about Joe Hoyt and Jerry Jones like their shiny toys. They like fun. Maybe that's the fun pick. I hope not. I really hope not, but I'm a little scared going into the draft next week. I am. I'm terrified. I'm a little terrified.
Let's put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that in the next pod. Just the fear of what the Cowboys could do. I think you know what else we're going to talk about in the next pod. Probably we got to start identifying some potential day 2, day 3 offensive linemen that they could take. So, anyways, that's another episode of How About That podcast. I thought this was very fun. A long one for you guys. But I had so much room to talk after being quiet and going through nose stuff. And so I needed to let some things out. But thank you guys again. Please subscribe, share, review. I'm speaking for Danny and Joey here. I think it's been a slow start, but I can promise you we're very appreciative and thankful for, the people that have already been listening and sharing. It means a lot. So continue to do that and tune in again later, sometime soon, for the next episode of How About That podcast.
Thanks for listening to How About That podcast.